Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Discover Your Dreams. This space is rooted in the grounded life philosophy where inner peace becomes the foundation for purposeful living. Here, we focus on regulation, awareness, and conscious self-leadership as a way of returning to ourselves and living from a grounded place. Before we begin today, take one slow breath. Let it settle you. Feel the weight of your body, the way it meets the chair, the floor, the moment you're in. Just notice yourself, without fixing, without judging. Today, we're talking about something most people don't recognize until it's already too late. Burnout doesn't usually crash into your life like a storm. It creeps. It accumulates. It whispers long before it ever raises its voice. And underneath burnout, there's often something deeper at play, a quiet, persistent misalignment between what you value and what you're doing, between what you need and what you're giving, between who you are and the life you're currently living. So today, we're talking about how to recognize the early signs that you're drifting out of alignment before your body, your energy, or your mind steps in and forces you to stop. Burnout isn't just exhaustion. It's not simply feeling tired, stretched thin, or overwhelmed by the weight of everything you're carrying. Burnout is what happens when you drift away from yourself, not in one dramatic moment, but in 100 small ones. It's the slow erosion that begins when you stop listening to your own signals, when you override your limits, when you keep pushing even though something inside you is quietly whispering, no more. When your actions and your inner truth stop matching, the system doesn't collapse immediately. It starts to fray. A little here, a little there, not all at once, but slowly, so slowly that you often don't notice the unraveling until you're already deep in it. Most people don't notice misalignment early because it doesn't announce itself with alarms or dramatic warnings. It doesn't feel like a crisis at first. It feels like pushing through, telling yourself you can handle just a little more, being responsible, showing up because that's what you've always done, doing what needs to be done, even when it costs more than you admit. On the surface, it can look admirable, it can look disciplined, it can even look productive, which is exactly why it's so easy to overlook. Misalignment often hides inside what the world praises, until the weight of it becomes impossible to ignore. Alignment isn't about choosing what's easy. It's about choosing what's honest, even when honesty asks more of you than convenience ever will. And when you start drifting away from what's true for you, your body doesn't stay silent. It speaks. It signals. It nudges. But it doesn't begin with a full-blown burnout. It starts with subtle messages, the kind you can brush off, rationalize, or power through if you're not paying attention. Tiny cues, quiet discomfort, a sense that something is just a little off. Those early signals are your first invitation back into alignment, long before your body has to raise its voice. There was a time in my life when I was doing everything right. I was showing up, following through, keeping every promise I made, to others at least. From the outside, it looked steady, dependable, even admirable. But inside, something felt off. Not dramatic, not alarming, just off. It started as the smallest shift, a little more tired than usual, a little less clear in my thinking, a little less connected to myself. And I brushed it aside because nothing was technically wrong. There was no crisis, no obvious problem, no reason to slow down. So I didn't. I kept going. And those tiny signals, the ones I told myself didn't matter, were the first signs that I was drifting out of alignment. Over time, those small signals didn't stay small. They grew, quietly at first, then steadily. I started second-guessing myself more than usual, questioning decisions I used to make with ease. My motivation thinned out. My mind felt cluttered, like there was too much noise and not enough clarity. But instead of pausing, I did what so many of us are conditioned to do. I pushed harder. I doubled down. I told myself this was just a phase, that I just needed to be stronger, that slowing down wasn't an option, because that's what we are taught. To keep going, to keep producing, to keep proving. And eventually, my body stepped in. It made the decision I refused to make. I hit a wall. Not because I was weak, but because I had ignored every earlier whisper asking me to realign. Looking back, I can see that the burnout wasn't the beginning at all. It was the final signal, the point where every ignored whisper finally gathered enough force to knock me off my feet. The earlier signals were there long before that moment. Quiet, subtle, easy to dismiss. A little tension in my chest, a little fog in my mind, a little heaviness in my days. But I didn't recognize any of it as misalignment. I thought it was just life, just stress, just a busy season. I didn't realize those small shifts were my first clues. The early warnings that something inside me was asking for a different direction. Misalignment rarely arrives as one big, dramatic moment. It shows up as patterns, small shifts that are easy to overlook because they feel familiar, manageable, or normal. But these patterns are often the earliest signs that something inside you is asking for realignment. It can feel like a subtle exhaustion, not full burnout, but a steady, low-level tiredness that never quite lifts, no matter how much you rest. It can show up as mental noise. Your mind feels busier, but not clearer. Overthinking ramps up while clarity quietly slips away. You're doing a lot, yet somehow feeling less anchored. It can feel like a slight loss of connection with yourself. Not a total disconnect, just enough to notice that you're not fully present in your own life. It can look like forced motivation. Tasks that once felt natural or energizing now require effort, discipline, or self-talk just to begin. It can surface as emotional reactivity. Small things feel bigger than they should. Your patience shortens. Your internal buffer thins. And it can show up as a lack of satisfaction. Even when things go well, the joy doesn't fully land. Achievements feel muted, like they're happening behind glass. These patterns are not failures. They're signals. Early, compassionate invitations to come back into alignment before your system has to shout. Take a moment and ask yourself gently, without pressure, am I energized by my life right now, or am I simply pushing my way through it? Let yourself pause here. Let the noise settle. Let your breath slow just a little. You don't have to force an answer. You don't have to analyze it. Just give yourself enough stillness for the truth to rise on its own. Whatever comes up, let it be honest. Let it be yours. There was another time in my life when I felt that familiar shift, the same subtle signs that something inside me was changing. A little more tension in my body, a little less clarity in my thoughts. A quiet sense that something wasn't lining up the way it used to. But this time, I didn't brush it aside. I didn't tell myself to push through or wait for it to pass. I paused. I stepped back. I gave myself space to actually listen. And I asked myself, where am I out of alignment right now? The answer didn't arrive with drama or intensity. It wasn't a life-altering revelation. It was small, almost easy to miss. A decision I had been avoiding, a direction that didn't feel fully honest, a truth I hadn't wanted to acknowledge. But even that small misalignment mattered, and noticing it early changed everything. Instead of pushing through, I adjusted. I made a small, honest shift. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would look impressive from the outside. Just a choice that felt aligned with what was true for me. And what surprised me was how quickly things began to change. My energy started to return, almost like my body exhaled in relief. My clarity came back, the mental fog lifting in a way I hadn't realized I needed. The tension I'd been carrying quietly dissolved piece by piece. It wasn't because my entire life transformed overnight. It wasn't because everything around me suddenly became easier. It was because I came back into alignment, and even the smallest aligned step can shift everything. Small misalignment always feels manageable, until suddenly it isn't. At first, it's easy to justify, easy to explain away, easy to tell yourself you're fine, you're capable, you can handle it. But every time you ignore your internal signals, you strengthen the habit of disconnecting from yourself. And that disconnection takes effort to maintain. It requires you to override your own needs, to push past your own limits, to pretend you're not feeling what you're feeling. That extra effort creates tension, a slow, steady tightening in your mind, your body, and your life. And over time, that tension compounds. It builds. It wears you down. Eventually, the weight of all that disconnection becomes too much to hold. And that's when burnout arrives. Not as the first sign something is wrong, but as the final consequence of ignoring what your inner world has been trying to tell you all along. Your nervous system is always tracking alignment, even when your mind isn't consciously paying attention. When something in your life is aligned, your body responds with a sense of openness. Your energy moves freely. Things feel smoother, more natural, more like you're moving with yourself instead of against yourself. When something is misaligned, your body reacts differently. There is subtle tightening, a sense of bracing. Your system starts to compensate, working harder, holding more, trying to keep you functioning even when something inside you is out of sync. Burnout is what happens when that compensation stops being temporary and becomes the way you're living every day. Let me ask you something. Which of those signs stirred something in you? Which one made your body react, even just a little? If you're open to it, share just one word in the comments. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's noise. Maybe it's disconnection. Maybe it's something entirely your own. There's power in naming what you're feeling. Sometimes that single word is the doorway back to awareness, and awareness is the first step toward realignment. Let's try something simple, something you can return to anytime you feel even slightly off-center. Think about your current life, your work, your relationships, your daily rhythm, the way your days actually feel from the inside. Now gently ask yourself, where in my life do I feel the most ease? Those moments where things flow, where my body softens, where I feel like myself. Where do you feel the most resistance? Those places where I tense up, hesitate, or feel like I'm pushing against something. And where am I overriding what I already know is true? Those quiet truths I sense, but haven't fully acknowledged. Don't analyze it. Don't try to get the right answer. Just notice what rises first. Your body will respond long before your mind tries to explain anything. You don't need to overhaul your entire life to come back into alignment. It rarely starts with big sweeping changes. More often, it begins with small, honest adjustments, tiny shifts that bring you closer to yourself. Sometimes it's a conversation you've been avoiding, the kind that clears the air and lets you breathe again. Sometimes it's a boundary, a gentle but firm line that protects your energy. Sometimes it's a decision you've been circling around, finally choosing what feels true instead of what feels expected. And sometimes it's simply a shift in how you're showing up, less performing, more presence. These small changes restore connection. Connection restores energy, and energy restores clarity. Alignment doesn't demand perfection. It asks for honesty, one small step at a time. You don't have to wait until burnout forces you to stop. You don't have to reach the breaking point to finally listen to yourself. You can tune in earlier. You can notice the subtle shifts before they become loud. You can adjust gently, without upheaval or crisis. Because alignment isn't a one-time achievement. It's not a destination you reach and stay at forever. It's a practice, a returning, a recalibrating, a coming back to yourself again and again as you grow, change, and move through your life. Burnout isn't the first sign. It's the last one. The point your system reaches only after every quieter signal has been overlooked. If you learn to recognize the earlier cues, the subtle exhaustion, the tension, the mental noise, the moments of disconnection, you don't have to get anywhere near that edge. You can respond sooner. You can realign earlier. You can support yourself before your body has to step in and force a pause. Burnout is the final alarm. Your earlier signals are the invitation to choose a different path long before you reach that point. You don't have to push yourself all the way to the edge before you allow yourself to make a change. You don't need a crisis, a collapse, or a breaking point to justify listening to what your inner world has been trying to tell you. When you pay attention earlier, when you honor the subtle signals instead of waiting for the loud ones, alignment becomes so much easier to return to. Your system doesn't have to fight you. Your body doesn't have to shout. You can shift gently, intentionally, and with far less resistance. This is the real work. Noticing sooner, responding sooner, caring for yourself sooner. I'll see you next time.